Hey guys! Well, in today's chapter, Sarah Elizabeth resolves her feelings about TW and the whole polygamy situation. So we sort of get some closure on that part of her life. It's funny because she talks about how hard it was to bottle and can and preserve food, and it's worth it because it tastes so good versus buying it in the store. And I thought that was funny because when I think 1930s, I just assume in my mind that everybody was bottling and canning and preserving their own food. I never thought about it, that of course they would have canned fruits and vegetables at that time, and most people relied on that for their food. But I could relate because I'm always saying to my family, it is so much work every year to keep this garden going and all of these fruit trees in our backyard. I do all the planting, harvesting, and preserving, and it is a lot of work for one person. And the other day I was looking in our food storage room, and we just have so many jars of bottled fruit and vegetables and juice from over the past several years, and it was very tempting for me to think, you know what, I just might skip this year because we can't seem to keep up with all that we already have. However, a lot of the fruit in our yard produces spontaneously without any effort on my part because it's trees and berry bushes and grapes, so those things are coming no matter what. And I don't want them to go to waste, so of course I'll probably be, again, preserving them this year. But I could relate to Sarah, whom we call Elizabeth, because it is so much work and really takes everything you have in you to do it. You are exhausted by the end of the day, and there's a lot of nights where I stay up pretty late getting that done, and I am just so tired the next day. So it is so tempting to skip this summer. But I just love fresh vegetables. I love to be able to go out and just pick things out of my garden and make a fresh salad for lunch or dinner. So who knows? I'll probably keep doing it. Anyways, let's get to today's chapter. Chapter 26. It was the morning of Emmy's wedding while we were getting ready for the big wedding supper to be held that night. Emmy and her intended were gone to Logan to be married in the temple. Evie dropped a boiling hot kettle of water on her leg accidentally and scalded it dreadfully. She was almost 12, and to be your mother's bridesmaid. I'd made her a beautiful pale blue dress to wear, but she was bedfast, couldn't even attend the party. She had to lie upstairs, stretched out, with a poultice on her leg from above the knee to the ankle. It was 2 weeks before she could use that leg at all, and it took over 2 months before she could wear that dress at all. She cried and cried, more because she couldn't wear the dress than because of the scalded leg. It was a long time healing. She loved beautiful clothes from the time she could walk until she died, and she had exquisite taste. She inherited the artist's taste from her father and was a very good artist in her own right. After they moved to Los Angeles, she took lessons in painting and became very skilled, a teacher of art, and taught some of the movie stars in her later years. She loved painting on velvet. Life was never the same after T.W. married into polygamy. Not for me, my children, nor for him. Oh yes, he was good to me, good as he could be, but times were hard, especially for us poor devils who had so little and such large families to support. I took in carpet weaving, and when he was away, I'd work far into the night many times to finish a piece just so I could get a little extra income. When he was home, he'd forbid me to work at night and insist I needed my rest. It seemed I was always either nursing a baby or expecting one, besides all else necessary in such circumstances. I'm sure it was hard on Hannah too, but she went into it knowingly. It was forced on me, and I hated it. There was precious little comfort in his oft-repeated assurance that I was and always would be his one great love. We had many bitter scenes about it. Not before the children. Neither of us ever discussed such things or disagreed with each other in their presence. But never again could I spontaneously respond to his love-making. This truly hurt him, but I would not pretend as he begged me to. I learned to love you once, I told him, more than I thought I ever could love again. I can't even, though I go on bearing your children. I'm not made that way. I don't feel this way because I can't help myself. In a way, I feel that you deserted me through no fault of mine. Yes, I know you say you acknowledged a higher law, and I'm sure you mean it. All that I know is that I hurt inside all the time because of it. I'm not in the least jealous. If you had taken another wife quickly after my death, I could have understood, and even wanted you to, knowing you needed someone. But never, not once, did I ever refuse your advances, in bed, I mean, when you really wanted me. But now I feel that no matter who else you may sleep with, you still feel unfulfilled, and it's because I cannot respond to you as I did before. But Lizzie, you are a good, staunch Mormon. Look around you. Every one of your closest neighbors are polygamist wives. Your dearest friend Mary, for instance, and she is happy and content, yet her husband has 4 wives, all living right here. Do either of them complain about being a plural wife? You're not telling me anything I don't already know, but none of it changes the way I feel. I've lain awake at nights, trying to convert myself to the situation I'm in, trying to analyze why I feel this way. Perhaps it's because of the horrible experiences after my father was gone, and my mother gave her consent to that detestable man to have me sealed to him. You know that story. Yes, my dearest, and as I look at it from that light, I can see how really painful your life is in so many ways. But what you have suffered has instilled a fear in you that will not leave you free to be your own true self. Still, I pray that someday your great love for me will return. All I've ever wanted in this life since I joined the church was to do the will of the Father in whatever He desired of me. In whatever He desired of me. Tell me you believe this. Then let us lay this issue to rest and find what happiness we can together while we both shall live. Will you do this for me? Yes, I will. And he took me in his arms so gently, so tenderly, that for a second or two it made me think that this is what my father would do were he here to comfort me, and I felt the hardness in my heart soften toward him in spite of myself. When we first moved there, he sent away somewhere and got little fruit trees and planted them east of the big house. Peach trees mostly, and a few apricots. There were already wild plum trees or bushes. Potawatomi, a delicious pink plum that grew almost anywhere, and made delicious preserves. And blue plums, a little larger, that were good bottled or jammed. I'd dry most of what we didn't eat fresh for winter use. We had no way of canning or bottling in those early years, but later I did some bottling, though we liked the dried about as well. And oh, how my whole family loved dried corn and parched corn. We made our own vinegar from fruit juices, grapes, apples, just whatever we had. Sometimes we'd put some of the homemade molasses with it. Boil it to a thick syrup, then add whole ripe, clean peaches, and gently simmer into the most delicious pickled peach preserve. This we could store in large earthen crocks and use on very special occasions, such as Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving. They were a great treat, especially when winter came and fruit and sweets were so scarce. I should tell you that the Potawatomi plums were named that for the Potawatomi tribe that first found them. They're still a favorite with me. Of course, the fruit and preserves didn't taste half so good made with molasses as with sugar, but we used what we could get in those days. When I think how hard we worked, drying fruits and vegetables, especially sweet corn, and how delicious it all tasted, we don't see folks doing that sort of thing these days. They go to the store and buy it in a can, and really, it isn't half so tasty and good. I don't care what anyone may tell you. Don't think I ever told you that we had a little spring of ice-cold water just out back to the north of the little kitchen, which was built on later. The spring bubbled up out of the ground, and there was the most delicious watercress that I have ever eaten growing all around it. We had it in early spring, right up until the snow covered it in the late fall. None of it went to waste either. We all ate it as a salad with a little salt. There were several of those wonderful springs along the homes on that road and in that vicinity. One a little farther north where they built the central schoolhouse. Yes, I interrupted. I remember that one well. It was there when I went to school. When was that? The fall of 1912, and for 3 years thereafter. They had the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades there. I graduated from the 8th grade in 1915. T.W. built a hardwood frame about 18 inches by 24 inches and sunk it down around the spot where the water flowed out, and I could fix my butter in a sealed container and keep it cold there. It was handy to cool things, too. We had no refrigerators in those days. The lawn out front was dotted with little white daisies and white violets. I don't know where he got the seed, but I guess the daisies and violets were just in it and came up with the lawn. He planted 2 pear trees out front. Those trees bore the sweetest and most delicious pears I ever tasted. Not very large and almost round. Oh, they were so good and made exquisite preserves as well. Sometimes I just stew them, and we'd have them hot for supper. "What became of your carpet loom, Grandma?" I asked. "Oh, didn't I tell you? Well, I was near the end of my time, just before Gracie was born, and I was trying to finish a carpet for a woman before I had the new baby. Weaving is hard work, and I knew I shouldn't try to stick at it for so long. But T.W. was away, and I was determined to finish it. I got it done at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the pains began. I took it off the loom and measured it and folded it, then dragged myself downstairs and sent Joseph for Grandma Brown. T.W. had taken the 2 older boys with him, and Johnny was sick. That was the sickest I ever was. The baby was breech, and she had to turn it. Something most doctors, even today, don't know how to do unless they're in a hospital. But she saved the baby and me. But she had a hard time trying to stop the hemorrhaging afterward. When T.W. returned and learned what had happened, he went upstairs with an axe and completely destroyed that lovely loom. Both of them, in fact. The little brass one made of finest steel and copper wires that he'd made me years before to weave silk on. "I'll see to it that you don't kill yourself weaving any more," he declared. I have never seen him quite so angry, before or since. I was angry too, for I loved to weave, and I liked the little extra it brought in. I cried and cried, but it did no good. But what did he know about that? I just had to accept it. The inevitable. So I began to figure out other ways I could earn some pin money. I was a very good sewer, so I began taking in sewing. Though I'd far rather weave than sew, it was better than nothing. She always pronounced nothing as nothing. After Annie got married, he began taking Emmy with him to Ogden to cook and keep house for him and the boys. She soon got a job at a tailor shop where she learned the trade, measuring, fitting patterns exactly to one's body, and sewing tailor-made suits for men and occasionally for ladies. She was very clever at it and loved her work. She's the best sewer in the family, though the other girls were all good at it. She was always a hard worker, and they liked her a lot. She was a hard worker, that girl. She kept house for those men and cooked for them and held down a job all the time she was there. She made all her own clothes as well and learned a good trade. She made her complete wedding outfit, and it was beautiful. I don't see how, but she could measure a lady and cut a pattern to exactly fit every time. As I say, all my daughters and daughters-in-law were good seamstresses, but Emmy was the best. And that's it for today's reading. Just 4 more chapters left, and then it's time for the documentary. I'm ordering the headstone for William's grave, so stay tuned for that. Those of you who donated to the GoFundMe, I will be reaching out to you with an invitation for that experience. I can't wait to get to that part. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's chapter, and I will see you next week for chapter 27.